Thank you, and welcome everybody to this meeting of the Swansea Bay City Deal Joint Committee on the 30th of July 2024. We'll take apologies for absence first, please.
Thank you, Leader. I have apologies from Wendy Walters and Paul Boyle.
Okay, do we have any other apologies for today? I don't see any. Okay, so we'll move on to disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest. Are there any from any members today in terms of any items on the agenda? No, again, I don't see any indications, so we'll move on. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the Joint Committee on the 13th of June 2024. I haven't been notified of any amendments or errors, but happy to take those if you have any today. If not, can I ask, I'm happy to move them as a true record. Can I ask for a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Price. If I could ask colleagues to show if they're in favour of the minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Those are agreed. On to announcements of the Chair. I've got one formal announcement today, which is firstly to thank Emma Woolett, the outgoing Chair of the Swansea Bay University Health Board. Emma, as you know, has supported the work of the Joint Committee for a number of years in her position as Chair, but is now stepping down to move on to a different role, and we wish her all the very best in her new endeavours. Jan Williams has been appointed as the new Chair of the Health Board, and we are hoping shortly to have confirmation from the Health Board in terms of their future representation. But obviously, our thanks to Emma, and obviously if Jan does join us, we'll welcome Jan at the next meeting. Moving on then to public questions. I don't believe we've been notified of any public questions today, so we'll move on to the agenda formal. So first item is the financial monitoring report for 23-24 and the provisional outturn at Q4. So I'll go to Chris Moore for this update, please, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is its head is the provisional outturn, but it is actually near enough the outturn because the timing of the finalisation of last year and the time in the meetings means that we've confirmed really the figures. I'll take you to the Appendix A, which is probably the best place to start, which actually gives you a summary of operational activity of the Joint Committee during the year, and you've got a number of categories broken down there. You've got the Joint Committee and accountable body function. The figures there look a little bit distorted because we've had the influx of substantial interest during the year. We've held significant balances, but also interest rates, as you'll know from your own authority, have significantly risen during 23-24. And you'll notice a figure of 2.7 million there as the interest that has actually been paid out. And further down, you'll notice it's been received. So this is on the balances that we're holding as a Joint Committee. We administer the balances through Carmarthenshire County Council, and it's then so it gets an allocated average interest rate of what the actual investments are of the County Council, which then comes through the Joint Committee. The policy as it stands is that 2.7 million then is redistributed over the constituent authorities. So it comes back as funding to the individual authorities, which is the way we set it up originally. Hence, you've got it coming in and out of the account. But if you actually take that interest out of the equation, certainly the variance on the accountable body is only 17,000 because it's 188,000 against the 206, which is indicated there. So it's a bit of a distortion, but it's difficult to judge interest rates because they are very much governed by what the bank base rate is and what the government does during the year. And as we know, the government has made some moves over the last couple of years that has actually had quite an impact on finances generally. Further down, then you have Joint Committee, which is there or thereabouts, and then you have the Portfolio Management Office, which is a summary of the Support Office, including John Burns and his team. Slight variation there down on the original estimate, and that's due to some of the areas where we didn't need to call on funding that we had in place, and also the employee costs are down on the basis that John is holding some vacancies at the moment. Further down, then you have the contributions coming in. We've got the top slicing, which was originally projected as 723. It's coming slightly higher, and that's down to what we can draw down in the year and allocate out. And then you have the interest, which I've already discussed. So overall, rather than actually ending up with a deficit in the year, which was in the original budget, we've ended up with a small surplus of 42,000, which has then gone on to balances, increased balances, and be carried forward into the future years in terms of the administration of the function over the future years. And we will look at that as part of budget composition for the future years. Obviously, we got no partner contributions now because we've run the 5 years. So that summarizes the first part of the narrative report, and I've summarized it by using Appendix A. Then if I just go back to paragraphs 3.1, we got a general update on where the investments are. You can see at the end of Q1, our anticipated net investments at the end of the projects or portfolio work is 1.278 billion. Slightly down on the forecast during the year, but slightly up on what we originally committed to when we went into the City deal some years ago. And so that is illustrated there, both in terms of individual projects and a breakup between the City deal, public sector, private sector, and that's on page 6 of the actual report. The following pages then give a summary, and I'm on page 9 of the report, or 3.2 paragraph. It gives a summary of the investments during the year, and the portfolio investments are slightly down by 32,000 during the year. But again, you can see the variance on the annual program investments there. Very difficult on any capital program to sort of home in on a particular year, and it's to some extent it doesn't serve any purpose. The main objective is to get the overall capital project over the line and complete at the end of the day. So that gives a certain indication of what happened during the year, but it's more important the overall capital investment. So that really is a quick summary of that outturn position during the year. Chair, happy to take any questions if there are any. I am also recognising that we got a full statement of accounts coming as the next item. Diolch.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for that comprehensive run through. As you say, interest rates, I think, have affected everything for the country, and that's been a challenge now for a couple of years. But again, good to see us maintaining our commitment to the delivery of the deal and the numbers that we signed up to 7-8 years ago now.
Yeah.
So again, we've been through a lot of challenging times in that period, pandemic and others, and to still have a output and outcomes that are very close to what we originally started with, I think is a commendable position for us to be in. And again, as I say, in every opportunity, we remain the only deal where we've got everything in delivery, which is again something we should continue to be proud of. So open it up. If anybody got any questions for Chris on the outturn report. If not, I'm happy to move that on behalf of Chris. Can I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, John. We'll go to the vote then. If I could ask colleagues to show if they're in favour of the report, please. Thank you very much. That is agreed. And as Chris alluded to, we've got the pre-audit annual statement of accounts. So, Chris, I'll come back to you for our next item.
Okay, thanks, Chair. As we all know, the Commander is the accountable body for the finance stewardship of the City deal. We're under an obligation each year to produce a statement of accounts under the accounts and audit regulations, and that we need to present to external audit, who will undertake the audit, produce an ISA 260, which is an audit report later in the year, and that will report back to the Joint Committee. It's good practice to present the draft statement of accounts to the Joint Committee, or the committee accountable for for actually receiving the accounts, and this is what this document is. So this document is the pre-audit document. It's actually presented to committee today. as it also goes through to audit for audit, and Wales Audit will audit this in conjunction with all the other local authority accounts during the year. It's quite a comprehensive document, and it actually provides quite an overview of what the city deal is about, what's been provided, but also is very much governed by the code of practice of accounting code of practice and the accounts and audit regulations. So in terms of the financial elements of the report, there's limited limited changes that you can make, and it's very much dictated, the format, by that that guidance that's put in place. However, we do have an overview, which is the preamble, which starts on page 4 of the statement or page 17 of our information pack, which gives a bit of a background on the city deal, which we would all be familiar with, etc., and gives an overview of that situation, including a statement from the chair. The critical element then comes on at the start of page 27 or page 14 of the statement. And in all honesty, if you want to summarize the financials, those next 3 pages is all you need to read of the report. And perhaps I shouldn't be saying that, because there's a lot of content in the report afterwards. But to get an overview of the position and to actually understand how it's done against budget and what the spend is, you can actually achieve that in those 3 pages. And this really replicates some of what I've reported in the previous item. But between page 14 and 17 of the statement, you can see a summary of the turnover against budget, etc. And again, some of the items that I've mentioned in the previous report are there, giving a surplus for the year of 2000. So I won't talk through that in depth now, because I've already done that in the previous report. The following page gives a summary of the investment and the outturn. What is highlighted there is the fact that we were able to accelerate payments drawn down from UK government of in the region 19 million, and that is actually transparent there, where the actual variance on the government grants coming in is roughly £19.3 million, which is where UK government in the year asked for any opportunity to accelerate payments to any of the schemes. So we looked at the profile of the various schemes, and there were some schemes that were significantly advanced that we could actually apply more of the grant now, as opposed to waiting for it in the future. As you recall, the payment process is over a 15-year period, which to have the cash up front was quite helpful, because it meant that lead local authorities didn't have to borrow quite so much. So a good example is the arena project in Swansea, where that's complete and built. That meant that we could inject more money into the money that was outstanding from the grant profile over the 15 years now immediately. So that was a real positive from UK government to be able to sort of work with that and move that forward. The small table below just illustrates how much we are actually holding for schemes to advance on capital grants and applied. That will get distributed as soon as actually we're in a position to do that, where the works is completed on some of the other schemes. The profile of the way that we apply the grants, we apply it all fairly across all schemes, so that actually every scheme can have the profile of grants that they need to claim at the right point in the process, and that was agreed up front. Then the report goes on to an annual review, which is prepared by John on pages 30-31 of the pack, or page 17 and 18. And then you have the formal statements, where I've actually had to sign on page 20 of the statement, or 33, that I feel that the actual statements and the content is a true and fair view of the City Deal region. Auditor's report is blank at the moment, obviously, because the work is going on. You have accounting policies, and then you jump. What I would say today is you jump to the main substantive statements of the actual accounts, which is the income expenditure account on page 41 of the pack, 28, and then the following. You've got the movement of funds, and you've got the balance sheet. Balance sheet, I would home in on just a minute. The balance sheet doesn't hold much in terms of various assets, unlike a lot of balance sheets of companies and certainly the local authorities, is pretty much restricted down to cash and cash equivalents, creditors, debtors, and reserves, which you would expect because we are very focused on certain things we are doing. So the short-term creditors, highish figure 18 million, but that is expenditure, that is payments that due out to the various schemes and the lead authorities, and the grants in terms of unapplied I've already mentioned, which really gives you the summary of the cash and cash equivalents. So there are notes that follow. I won't go through all the notes. You are welcome to read them at your own leisure. What I would do is I would home in then on the final bit of the statement of account, which is the annual governance statement. That, as you know, we've got a joint committee agreement that went in place originally. That actually laid down certain governance procedures that we put in place, and we're required to state those, including the responsibilities of the statutory officers like myself, like the monitoring officer, etc. The structure of how we work on an annual basis, the process of internal, external audit, what their functions are. And there's quite a few pages there of details around that governance. That is a requirement, again, that we must complete. It is something that actually has a significant level of importance, that is actually signed off by the lead chief executive, which is Wendy in the case of the City deal, and the joint committee chair. So it's an important document that actually sums up how we regulate ourselves, how we monitor ourselves, and what the functions are that are actually undertaken. And it recognises, including the joint scrutiny committee and the audit function. The final bit then of the report is purely a glossary of terms for anyone who doesn't pick up on any of the terminology within the report. So as I say, Chair, it's a comprehensive report of the summary of the financial affairs. It's produced annually. It'll go to audit, and then it'll come back as a final presentation to you later in the year, either the September or the meeting immediately after that, once audit have completed their work on it. And hopefully they will give a clean bill of health on that report. So diolch yn fawr. Thank you for that. If there are any questions, I'll take them, Chair.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the work that you and your teams have done on getting that report together. As you say, it's a positive report. Really good to see, and I'm glad we were able to secure the accelerated funding from UK government, because that has helped, as you say, help councils avoid having to borrow more in order to fund the schemes. So again, the faster flow of cash is always to be welcomed. I guess the one thing that we still need to lock down, which is not really for the statement of accounts, but will play into future statement of accounts, is the agreement we have with Welsh Government for retention of business rates. And we need to get that formalised shortly, so that we can start to lock in the benefit of that element of the City deal as well. So again, be keen to make sure that we get that signed off as soon as we have the new Welsh Government arrangements in place. Yeah, Chris, did you want to come back?
Yeah, just on that, Rob, there has been significant progress on that at the moment. I think they are very close to getting a system. The Revenues and Benefits Officers has worked with Steve Aldridge-Jones in terms of working through that with Welsh Government. And from the report that was presented last week, I think it was, by one of the Welsh Government officers, they gave me a significant optimism that it was very close to being finalised. So that's a positive, and I believe what the work they've done is they've actually illustrated on a couple of the live schemes that we got in the region at the moment.
Excellent. That's good to hear that progress. Thank you, Chris. I'll open it up. Anybody else got any questions or comments for Chris on that report? No, don't see any hands. Okay, then I'm happy to move that on Chris's behalf. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Yeah, thank you, Darren. And we'll go to the vote then, please, if you could show if you're in favour of the report. Thank you, colleagues. That again is agreed. On then to the Swansea Bay City Region annual report. John, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the third City Deal annual report. The report summarises and celebrates key achievements and milestones between April 23 and March 24. So it's the financial year. It reinforces the alignment of the city deal and importance to our regional economy. And it also provides an insight as to what's going to happen in this current financial year, 24-25. So the report content has been worked in consultation with all project teams. It's been approved by the project leads, the key delivery organisations and programme board as well, Chair. Currently, we're working with a graphic designer. They've mocked up a style similar to last year's for the document and is consistent with our City Deal branding. And in terms of content, I'm not going to read the report because that's something like 40 pages of text, but in terms of content or contents, executive summary, portfolio themes and map that we're all familiar with, an update on the benefits, that's to date and within the financial year. Then the portfolio progress, which then breaks down into every project and programme, where all 9 project and programmes have a double page spread talking about key highlights. There's a lot of things, what we call in focus summaries, case studies, highlights, stuff around spend and investment and the breakdown of those, any projected benefits that the project has already undertaken or planned to undertake, and milestones for the current financial year. Then beyond that, there's a section around governance and reports. So the PMO structure, risks, assurance, audit, lessons learnt, a financial summary. Chris has gone through a lot of that outturn. There's just a page summary of that. Marketing, comms and events, and then business engagement. And there's key notes in each of the sections. Yourself, Chair, as the Chair of City Deal, Wendy as the Senior Responsible Owner, and Chris Foxall as the Chair of ESB. There's some key notes from each of you in that report. So subject to approval today, Chair, we want to finalise the draft with the graphic designer, translate the document into Welsh. Then we would issue a draft to joint committee members via email for final proofing in the final document, and then make it available to the wider stakeholder and general public audience. The document will be only in digital. We're not going to get it printed for numerous reasons: sustainability, cost, accessibility, etc. So what we're seeking today, Chair, is approval of the content so that we can then proceed with getting it out into the public domain, hopefully August if we can, but it may creep into September depending on timescales with translation and the designer.
Okay, thank you, John. That's really clear, yeah, and thank you for the work again on this one. That's pretty straightforward. Open it up for questions or comments to John. But if not, I'm happy again to move that recommendation. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you very much. And if you could show if you're in favour of the recommendation. Thank you very much. That will now proceed. So look forward to seeing the updated visual draft of that one. On then to the Support Innovation and Low Carbon Growth Programme. I just check if Lisa's with us. Yes, Lisa, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you and good morning, and I'm pleased to give you an overview of progress on the Support Innovation and Low Carbon Growth Programme, progress to date. Just to say, Brett Sudell, who was the programme manager, is now heading up the decarbonisation team within the council, so I'm covering the role at the moment. So we're looking to interview in the next month or so for that post, but I'd like to say a big thank you to Brett for leading that over the last 2 years for the programme. The Support Innovation and Low Carbon Growth Programme, the aim is delivering low carbon, sustainable and inclusive economic growth for the region. And the programme consists of 8 interlinked projects. I'm just going to give you an overview of each of the projects. So in terms of the Bay Technology Centre, that is built, up and running, and is just over 50% occupied with a number of tenants at heads of term stage. So that's a really good pipeline of tenants coming through there. The most recent tenant is the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, who've set up offices there, and they're going to set up a digital lab. They've rented out 3 offices, and they're looking to include digital lab to support businesses across the region and across Wales there. The switch to the South Wales Industrial Transition from Carbon Hub project, that's to be located on Harbourside. We've just completed Rebus 3 and we're due to submit a PAC documentation. However, there's a number of conversations going on, just ensuring that the facility is fit for purpose and in line with Tartar's decarbonisation plans. So that all going well, we'll be due on site April 25, about 12 to 18 months construction period, and completion summer 2026. So that's looking at ensuring that there's a decarbonised supply chain for the steel and metals industry. The Advanced Manufacturing Production Facility, we're discussing land and alignment. There's a little bit of slippage with this project, but we're discussing land and also alignment with the innovation landscape. It's a changing landscape at the moment, what with Freeport's, ABP and Flow. So making sure that the facility is fit for purpose. So we're going to be carrying out scoping and land negotiations this year and developing an operator model respecting the ecosystem with our innovation assets across the region, looking at design next year and then construction period 26-27. Then the Net Zero Centre of Excellence for Skills. This is linked to the Advanced Manufacturing Production Facility. And again, we're making sure this is fit for purpose and complements the existing landscape and ecosystem in terms of our FE and HE partners. And we're looking at ensuring the scope of the facility is fit for purpose with the skills. And again, this is linked to the advanced manufacturing. So looking at 26-27 construction period. Some of the smaller projects within the programme, we've got a hydrogen stimulus project, and that's linked in with University of South Wales. And they're looking at increasing capacity to generate hydrogen using excess renewable energy from the Bay Technology Centre. Of course, there's a lot of hydrogen developments going on at the moment, and we're making sure we're keeping aligned to those. John Maddy from University of South Wales is on our programme board for low carbon growth, and also our economic development team has a hydrogen forum to make sure that we're linked in and making sure we add value to the hydrogen landscape in the region and Wales. Then we've got the low emission vehicle charging infrastructure. We're looking at scoping off-road charging, so working with our highways and planning teams to progress that. Air quality monitoring project, we've had a latest report from Ricardo looking at low-cost mobile air quality sensors. So that is at the finding stage now at the moment with that. Really successful property development fund, a lot of interest in the property development fund for the Harbourside area. So that's Bagley Energy Park, Bagley Industrial Estate and Harbourside area. We've just awarded 3 grants totaling just over £1 million, and that's leveraging in over £1 million private sector investment for that. Round 2 is going through the assessment process. And then just to say that we're on track for delivery with benefits. We're monitoring jobs and investment leverages. Also, as a result of this programme of interlinked projects, we've managed to secure, in partnership with Swansea University, University of South Wales, Cardiff University, Net Zero Industry Wales. So a lot of UK research investment funding, and that's linked to the place-based impact accelerator account for switch to net zero buildings, and also a launchpad. So working with UK research investment to ensure that launchpad opportunities are aligned to the needs of the region. So it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I'm really happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. That's been really helpful. As you say, a significant amount of projects underway there and being brought together. So look, I did say to the leaders recently that be keen to revisit some of those elements of the project, as we will for the rest of the city deals. So looking forward to meeting with the teams again shortly to understand where they are. But sounds a really positive update and a lot going on there in terms of our agenda for low carbon growth. But I'll come to Councillor Hunt next. Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Just was going to reiterate what you said. And if you're looking at projects down in East Talbot, I'd be more than happy to be there with you on those projects. And I just wanted to recognise, isn't it, not just East Talbot, Swansea, Carmarthen, Pembroke, the work that our officers and staff and everybody else involved. It's all well and good having the city deal money to deliver projects, but the underlying factor is they have to be delivered by the relevant councils and officers and etc., with help obviously from every Jonathan and everybody else as part of the city deal. But it is an awful lot of work, isn't it? At a time when I'm not sure whether funding is accompanied that work for officers But I suppose if you drill down on it, I suppose there's an awful lot of time and value to the work they do. So I just think it needs to be recognised. I think you did touch on it, but it really does need to be recognised, because I know how hard Lisa with her teams work here, and lots of other officers, and it's the same in your authority. I know that Pembroke and Carmarthen, but I think it really does to deliver them. It's an awful lot of work, and they're doing an amazing job. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, absolutely, Stephen. I think we all agree with that. I mean, the work that's been put in across the portfolio on all the projects, all 30 odd projects, is really impressive, and that's why we're able to demonstrate such strong delivery in terms of what we're doing. I think specifically on this one, though, I think recalling back to the days in 2014, 15, 16, when we were thinking about the elements of the deal, some of this stuff was seen as quite aspirational and quite cutting edge. And of course, the world has moved on in that time now, and the challenges around energy, the delivery of hydrogen, infrastructure, EV charging, the work that we're doing to decarbonize the industries, assisting, trying to keep the steel industry in our region and functioning as part of the UK's national infrastructure. All of those projects that were started many years ago are now ones that are really relevant to today. So, that suite of projects is really, really important within the deal, and, really pleased to see the work that's going on. That's one of the reasons why I'm keen to get back and see a bit more of the detail on the ground. But Lisa, thanks, and please take our thanks back to the teams for the work that's being done. I'll open it up. Anybody else want to come in on this one? Got questions for Lisa on any of the elements of the scheme? Okay, don't see any more. This one's for noting, for information. So Lisa, thank you for that. We'll note the updates and look forward to seeing you again shortly. So thank you for that. We'll move now then to item 10, which is the Construction Impact Assessment Review. And I'll call in Peter on this one. Peter, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Chair. So hopefully members will be aware that we maintain a quarterly construction impact assessment report, which is contained in the quarterly reporting, which is the next item on the agenda. But a previous programme board meeting, we were asked to review the report, and particularly to look at areas surrounding value for money, flexibility in procurement, a review of a regional procurement strategy, and partnership solutions to address the skills issues affecting the construction industry. So first of all, I'll just briefly talk about the construction impact assessment report itself. So the report summarises programme and project risks, issues, estimated construction cost increases, and how the lead delivery organisations are managing with mitigating actions. The last few iterations of the report have been fairly static, and this is just a reflection of where we are in the procurement process across the portfolio. The next test for the portfolio will be with campuses, who are currently reviewing tenders for Singleton. Hopefully we'll have some indication over the next month or so as to how that is looking financially with the university. Swansea waterfront, with the negotiations for the hotel development, which I believe are proceeding quite well. And as Lisa has just said, with low carbon, yet to confirm the affordability of switch. So these are the sort of things that will be probably in the next iteration of the report. What the construction impact assessment doesn't cover is any effects of increased costs on future phases of projects, such as the future zones of Pedra Owl, the stage 2 of campuses, etc. So as such, as the portfolio office, we believe the construction impact assessment remains to be a valid and a strategic quarterly report for the stakeholders, as quite a few significant procurements are yet to be delivered, and those that are business case dependent, i.e. not directly funded by the city deal, but are part of the benefits realisation process, have yet to be delivered. So that's the report in itself. As a portfolio office, we will have a look at the way the report is laid out. There's a lot of narrative in there which we could perhaps trim, etc. And we'll see that going through governance in its next iteration probably. With relationship to value for money, a question was raised is how do we assess value for money when allocating public funds with increasing costs? So through the portfolio business case process, the business case update is where we would be expecting the projects to take that decision. So from the outline business case to full business case, which is the transition from before procurement and post procurement, when we look at the cost and the viability from the procurement process, that is the stage where affordability is decisions are made as far as the city deal is concerned. So we're fairly confident that that's robust and that all the partners undertake due diligence throughout that process. So we believe that the value for money is covered as far as city deal decisions are made. So two of the other things we were asked to look at was procurement and skills. So the procurement itself is outside of the scope really of City Deal itself because it's governed by national legislation. And the public sector procurement landscape in Wales is due to undergo a fairly significant revision with a shift to consider more social and environmental value and more inclusive procurement practices. The Procurement Act through UK government is in place. The Procurement Act Wales, which is the implementation version of that for Wales, is coming into force in later this year. And then there's a social value procurement paper as well, which is likely to be live sometime in October. So when it comes to regional procurement, we think that this is probably something that the Corporate Joint Committee might like to look at as part of their remit. Because we feel it's more appropriate to be handled through that process than the City Deal itself. And obviously the City Deal procurement principles, which we have, will be updated as and when we understand better how the new legislation is going to be rolled out and how it affects future stages of the delivery of the portfolio. So the final element of the report that you have is looking at construction. We're all aware of the volatility of the construction sector over the past few years, issues on pricing, issues on supply, difficulty with getting contracts and tenders delivered. The industry is reporting that it is much more confident now that although prices remain high, the volatility element is not there. So although costings are coming back higher than maybe they would have done in the past, they are fairly static. But the big issue that seems to be affecting the sector at the moment is skills. So there's a shortage of the right skills in the right places now, and there's a shortage projected for the future. And regionally, the South West Wales Learning and Skills Partnership are working with the industry and local education providers to try and explore effective short and medium term interventions that could address the levels of need, and it's hoped that these interventions that they take now will have a longer term impact and ease the recruitment issues regionally. So in a nutshell, Chair, that's just a brief overview of the report that you have. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Peter, and for the run through, really informative. I'll open it up for colleagues if they've got any questions or comments to Pete. Okay, Chris, come on in.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Pete, for that. I mean, obviously, the goal for the City Deal, a lot of it is around jobs and inward investment. And with the pressures from cost of living, what I'm seeing now with a lot of the projects I'm involved in, that to obviate some of the cost pressures, supply chains are being kind of overseas supply chains are being supported more than local. And I know when we put the principles together, local came up as a strong element within our procurement principles. And the concern is even some of the future looking industries that we're looking at are looking at cheaper goods overseas and cutting out local supply chains. So I wonder if there's an opportunity now, and I know the UK government are looking to the Value for Money office, that we can ensure that we are still supporting the local supply chain creation, and at a time when increased pressures are forcing us to look overseas. And the problem with that is once you start going down that route, it's very difficult to incubate them anymore. So part of that will be investment coming back into the companies in our region, in the supply chains, to grow them and to grow the jobs. So I think there needs to be a little bit of work done on that. I represent the region for the Investment Fund for Wales. Well, we've been pushing really hard to get those funds into companies in our region, and done lots of different roadshows, looked at intermediaries to get through out to the companies. I know hopefully the City Deal has been promoting that to the companies involved as well. And what we have seen is an uptick in the small business loans. So that's actually the biggest performing area in Wales now for those small business loans. Not so much the equity and the larger debt investment, but that money is there and it's going to be re-topped up if we can use it. I just think there needs to be a bit of an exercise here, because under the pressures and value for money, we're forced down this road of saving costs and losing our job creation. So maybe it's an exercise we can work on together after this.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I know certainly from a council perspective, a public sector perspective, we do include the localism measure in terms of our procurements, and it is something we strive to do. And obviously, hopefully, with the onset of revised laws and legislation and guidance from Welsh Government, we can take that a step further, because you're absolutely right. It's about doing what we can to ensure that we procure locally wherever it's possible, but within the constraints of the laws that we operate under. You'll know as well that in terms of council spend, we track every pound that we spend on major projects back through local contractors and local communities, so we can establish, the radius at which that money is having the impact in our local communities. And I think that is absolutely the right thing to do. Sometimes we cannot get products and services locally, but we should strive to do so wherever possible. That is my opinion. But obviously, we have to adhere by the public sector procurement rules that do often mean that we end up going outside of our locality for some services. Steve, I'll come to you.
Thanks, Rob. Just very briefly, they mentioned the skills project, the programme management update. I'd welcome that as an update ASAP. I think it's important that we have the skills partnership update with exactly what is happening there, if that's okay with you. Thanks.
Yeah, Steve, the intention is to get around all 9 of the programmes. Obviously, that'll pick up the 36 individual projects under that, including skilled and talent. So we'll definitely pick that up as part of our leaders' visits to some of the ground working staff in the project. So the people at the coalface. Okay.
Can I just come back in there on,
yes, certainly, Pete.
On Chris's point? One of the things that we are looking at doing later in the year is a workshop on supply chains. So we're already sort of considering how we might undertake that. But I think it's worth also noting that Business Wales are holding a South Wales Expo for supply chains in September. And that'll be in Swansea Arena. So it's covering the major institutions, their supply chains, and inviting all as many supply chain companies as can attend to that event. So our sort of timing is to run our workshop after that, where we'll have a little bit more feedback as from that sort of South Wales event. And I think by the time we're in that space, we'll have a little bit more idea of how the new procurement legislation is affecting localism, because I know that there is an inclusion in that legislation for that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a sort of watch this space at the moment on that one.
Could I ask them, Peter, we invite the money managers to that? Because if there are businesses that want to come in and looking for funding to help grow, then that's really the audience they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. We can talk about this after if you like.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. Thanks, Chris, for the contribution. We'll definitely follow up on your suggestion. We'll add that to our actions. This update was, again, just for information, so we'll note the update, and thank you, Peter, for that. We'll move on then to the quarterly portfolio monitoring. I'm going to go to John now, who's going to take us through the highlights of some of the projects within our portfolio. John?
Thanks, Chair. So this is Q1 24-25 monitoring report. For all members, you've got a lot of information in there, things like the City Deal dashboard and then project and programme updates. They include the RAG status, the red, amber, green, milestones achieved and planned, along with key risks and issues per project, and then portfolio level summary of risks and issues, red risks and issues, benefits realisation update, procurement pipeline issues log, change notifications, construction impact summary, gateway action plan, and then the internal audit action plan. So a lot of information to unpack. I'm just going to go through the highlights at a more portfolio level. So starting with the dashboard, with the RAG status, there's been a couple of movements. Digital infrastructure staffing resource went from amber to green. Eregin moved from delivery from green to amber, but there were no changes in the overall RAG status affecting those two projects. Eregin looking for phase 2 to submit a change notification in the near future. So in terms of red risks, there's no change since last quarter. There are 5 in-year spend, slippage in terms of the longer term forecast, benefits realisation, rising construction costs, and 10-15. So there are mitigations in place for each of those and updates accordingly. We have no red issues to report, Chair, but we do have 3 change notifications submitted in the quarter. One was from campuses. Campuses had a 5G innovation fund from the digital infrastructure project, so there's good linkage between the portfolio there. The 1.5 million, which was funded, they needed to change how many masts were deployed. It doesn't affect any of the deliverables. It does affect the timescales involved, so there is a few months slippage there. But what they will deliver, it won't affect the quality and the service that they will work with Vodafone on that. There were 2 then for digital infrastructure, connected places, full fibre infrastructure build. The good news about this change notification is that they secured additional funding, so 1.05 million from Welsh Government Local Broadband Fund, which again shows the strength of digital infrastructure and having everybody coordinated, working together, working with the governments and private sector along that journey. And the second one for digital infrastructure was around the delivery timescales. So they've estimated that they are going to have at least a 6-month slippage in terms of delivery timescales. So that will take them up to March 2027. But it is affordable to continue the programme team until that date. And again, that might be subject to a future review in the next year or 2. In terms of the construction impact assessment, Peter's covered that. But in terms of the reporting, there's no variation to the last report that you received. There's overall a 43.5 million shortfall. Lots of mitigations have been put in place. There is now around about a 12 million residual, with further mitigations looking to overcome that gap. And there's 1 new risk being added for Pentra Owl around delays to construction. In terms of benefits, there has been an increase in jobs. So we went from 597 in last quarter to 615, thanks to reporting through Pentra Owl on construction. We know there's more jobs created. We just have to evaluate them. These are the direct jobs created largely through construction. And the investment went up in the last quarter from 289 million up to 318 million. And again, largely around Pentra Owl and Pembroke Dock Marine for that increase. There's also a procurement pipeline, Chair. There is slippage shown and reported through digital infrastructure on Pentra Owl, but we're working as a PMO with all the project teams to identify as early as we can any changes to plan and report them accordingly. Then we move on to the project and programme updates. Chair, for the purposes of time, I'm not going to go through each project and programme. I know we've had Lisa summarise support and innovation, low carbon growth. there's lots of progress being made, lots of information there for members to have a read through. And if anybody would like to flag any project or program or any query on the content, I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Hey, thank you, John. Thank you for that. Again, some good progress being reported again this quarter. I'll open it up for questions, comments from members. If there isn't any, then we'll just note that one, and thank you, John, for running us through that. And then we'll move to our final item, which is the update on the Meet the City Deal events. Peter, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So members might remember that back in 2022, we held a City Deal Showcase event to celebrate the fact that all the business cases had been approved, which was very, very well received by the attendees and exhibitors. One of the actions in the feedback was to hold a smaller but similar events within the locality in each local authority area. So we delivered that action during the previous financial year. We held 4 events, one in Pembrokeshire, one in Carmarthen, one in Swansea, and one in Neath Talbot. So for expediency, the report has the detail on each event, but effectively we had over 30 exhibitors, including the City Deal projects, but also other suppliers or organisations working in the region. Overall, 509 registrations with circa 300 attendees, which is 58%, which is kind of what you expect from these type of events. 74% of the attendees across the 4 were from the private sector, which is the target audience, so we're quite pleased with that. 20% of those that did attend gave us feedback responses, the majority of which would attend a future event, so they found it useful. And we had similar feedback from the organisations that exhibited. And I'd just like to finish that brief overview of the report by thanking those of you that did attend and contributed to those events as well.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and again, thank you for the work you and the team are doing on those. Certainly the events I attended in Swansea in the past few months were really good. I know leaders had similar experiences in their authorities where the events have taken place, so thank you for that. And again, you can never do enough engagement and awareness and communication with businesses and residents about the opportunities and impacts of the City Deal. So thank you for that. I found, certainly in Swansea, we found the event really, really useful. So open it up. Any other further comments or questions for Peter? If not, we'll again note that one. So thank you very much. And that brings us nicely to the end of our agenda. So can I thank you all very much again for your attendance and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Diolch.
Thanks very much.
you all.
Thank you.